Today, we're excited to show the latest addition to Sonatype's suite of products, Sonatype Guide. Sonatype Guide is a multifaceted, three-pronged product that's focused on extending Sonatype's best-in-class data catalog to the fingertips of developers around the world. This is available through a flexible UI, a set of APIs, and also an MCP server. Today, we're going to focus in on the MCP server so that we can see how it might work in a real-world scenario. So before we ask Claude to do any work for us, let's take a quick look at the configuration of the MCP. So we'll see that I already have the Sonatype MCP configured and authenticated. It's a very simple setup. So you would just go to the Sonatype Guide configuration page, generate a token, and go ahead and plug that in to your MCP configuration. From there, we can go in and we can take a look at the tools that are available within the MCP. The first is get component version. So this will provide details about any given version of a component. And those details include vulnerabilities, open source malware, licensing information, developer trust score, as well as a couple of other data points. The next is get latest component version. So this will return the latest version of any given component. And finally is get recommended component versions. So leveraging Sonatype's best-in-class open source component data, we're able to provide those version recommendations directly to your AI coding assistant. So this references not only the vulnerabilities and the malware, but also the license obligations, developer trust score, breaking changes to make sure that we are providing the best possible component. Okay, so let's run a really simple real world example. So I'm going to ask Claude to create a Node.js fantasy advent calendar. I would like it to return different colored shapes for each day. And I've also prompted it to use the Sonatype MCP to research any dependencies. Now, adding the prompt about using the Sonatype MCP to research dependencies is not a required step. So if you update your rules file, you can prompt your agent to always use the Sonatype MCP to make sure that it is selecting the best possible components. Would highly recommend you do that so it'll save you quite a bit of typing in the long run. Now, what Claude is doing is calling the Sonatype MCP to get the recommended component versions of these different packages, and it is going to make some updates on my behalf. And this is a really typical experience that developers will go through as they are building new applications, as they're updating dependencies within existing applications. And we've done a lot of research recently that tells us that developers are spending less time writing code for new applications because they're taking advantage of these AI coding tools. Instead, they're now spending more time reviewing the output that those coding tools have provided them with and debugging it, making sure that they're using the best possible versions of those components, making sure there's no critical vulnerabilities or malware or copyleft licenses there. And so in using the Sonatype MCP, we're able to make sure that that coding tool is choosing the best components. There is policy already built in to ensure that there are no components that are recommended that have a CVE with a threat level of 7 or higher, or any component that contains malware or copyleft licenses. Those protections are already built in to that Sonatype Guide experience. What we've also found in our research is that early adopters of Sonatype Guide have actually seen about 155% increase or lift of the overall security posture of the applications that are using Sonatype Guide. This is really exciting because, again, it's showing that real world example, that real world proof that these coding tools that we're using aren't always making the best recommendations or the best decisions. Sometimes those coding tools are hallucinating different versions. Sometimes those tools are recommending really old, stale, or vulnerable versions because the models they're trained on might be a couple of months old. Now, we see that Claude is done. The app is ready to run. So let's go ahead and run it. All right, and we will see that the first 8 days have been revealed because it is the 8th day of December. And if we came back tomorrow on the 9th day, we would see one more day revealed with a fun color and shape. Let's go ahead and ask Claude about which components it chose and the overall quality of the components. All right, so Claude is calling out to the MCP to get details about the specific version of Chalk that it used. And in a moment, it should tell us a little bit more about that version of Chalk and also read line sync that it used. So these are the two components that Claude chose to use based on the recommendations and advice of the Sonatype MCP. So there are 0 external dependencies. There's no risk. It is performant. Now let's ask about a different version of Chalk. So let's see what it thinks about Chalk 5.6.1. So a couple of months ago, back in September of 2025, this specific version, Chalk 5.6.1, was implicated as part of the malicious Chalk debug attack. That Chalk 5.6.1 actually has a critical security warning, and we can see that it is malicious. These are the vulnerabilities that are associated with it. And Claude also reassures us that this calendar app or this Advent app is safe because we are using Chalk 5.6.2. So another really great example about making sure your AI coding tools have the latest and greatest data. And that concludes our brief demonstration of the Sonatype Guide MCP. If you're interested in giving this a shot, go to guide.sonatype.com. There you can register for a free account and get started with the MCP. Happy coding!